right after the election, people were talking, oh, it really wasn't that bad of a night for Republicans, all things considered. However, with the loss of the Senate, the terrible Trump approval ratings, that we've seen collapse over the last several weeks, lots of soul searching. We heard McConnell call out the president and say it was the lies that the president and allies put forth that caused the insurrection at the Capitol. In your assessment, is there a path back for sort of the old pre-Trump Republicans?
Yeah, it's been a rocky path this last 2 months, and I think people were already waiting in October and early November to kind of turn the page, think of what this party looked like without Trump. And of course, on November, that first Tuesday, Trump kind of reaffirmed his grip on this party, and I think the idea of him going away seemed completely unthinkable. 2 months later, after a rocky bout of a lot of lies and a couple lost elections and one Capitol riot later. And we're back to thinking about how does this party begin to navigate away from a guy who is appearing like he's going to haunt them for some time. He's without his favorite megaphone, so it makes him at least a little bit less scary. But they're going to have to deal with a potential impeachment trial here in the coming weeks, and really trying to get back to business as usual in the wake of Donald Trump is going to be easier said than done.
Interesting you bring up the so-called megaphone, and at the moment it's not Trump that has the megaphone, it's the Republicans he leaves. And we can, of course, Joe was mentioning what Mitch McConnell had said previously about the person he'd worked very closely with. Let's just reacquaint ourselves with what he mentioned just yesterday.
Senate convened, we had just reclaimed the Capitol from violent criminals who tried to stop Congress from doing our duty. The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people.
How much, therefore, with thus far no real social platform for the now former President Trump, Liam, what do you think Republicans will say in state? How will the impeachment hearing go? What does that mean in terms of affecting whether he can ever be elected again, and who would lead this so-called new party he might try to start?
I do think the considerations are a little bit different in the Senate than they were in the House. When we go back to the impeachment vote in the House, 140 members of the roughly 200 Republicans did vote to vote against those charges, which gives you a sense of not necessarily the fear of Donald Trump from those members, but their understanding of where their voters are with respect to President Trump. I think the calculus is a little bit different in the Senate, and you're seeing that projected by Mitch McConnell. I think they take a little bit longer of a view. They're insulated from some of the direct pressures, obviously 6-year terms, a full state instead of a gerrymandered district. But I think it's going to be tough to find those 17 votes you would need to convict him. And I think you're already seeing senators starting to think about ways to kind of get around the question, not least of which the fact that the president is no longer the president. Impeaching him does not remove him from office. But I think the operative question is, can you keep him from seeking office again? And I think the real pickle there is the only reason we're worried about him seeking office again or being barred from office is the fact that half of the party continues to want to see him in that role, potentially running as the 2024 standard bearer. So it's a tricky situation. I do think McConnell is sort of charting a way forward, and it's an open question to see where the conference is when this starts to play out. I do think there's going to need to be new information presented at trial to really move the needle.
Yeah, I mean, we always have to point out he did receive more votes this time around than he did in the previous election. So there are a lot of enthusiastic supporters. And given what we saw over the last 4 years, it's unlikely that he's going to completely leave the public stage. We are looking at pictures here, Liam, of what's going on in the Senate right now as Kamala Harris swears in new members of the Senate. With regards to the Senate, with regards to the House, with regards to the legislative process, which you have a lot of familiarity with here, Liam, given the animosity that we've seen over the last few years, and particularly what culminated a couple of weeks ago with the storming of the Capitol, do you think that the political system as it's set up right now, this two-party system, that something effective can get done, the day-to-day governing can get done without, I guess, whatever happened over these last 4 years where we essentially had two sides that refused to budge on anything?
Look, I think the cycle of futility is what feeds the cynicism that leads to an untenable situation where if you feed people enough lies, they're going to act on them. I'll say this, the one thing that Joe Biden brings to the table beyond a very realistic approach to how the sausage is made in Washington, a realistic idea of what can get done and sort of how to build those coalitions, I think he was able to prove throughout the primary and to this present day, he doesn't tune in to the daily outrage. He doesn't listen to what the trending talks are on Twitter. He doesn't pay attention to what the activists are doing. And I think that opens an opportunity. And I think you're already seeing McConnell sort of signal that he is open to working with the president. So I think putting points on the board, doing things that can get done, compromising, it's not what either side's base wants to hear, but it's the only thing that you're going to do to start getting some faith back in the system. And I think that's going to be critical to try to do what President Biden wants to do and unite this country and move forward.